The media are attempting, because Joe Biden is losing, to generate more headlines about Donald Trump. The problem is that the headlines are kind of more of the same. Now, the headline they're truly hoping to generate is the headline Trump goes to jail. That's what the media are desperately wishing for at this point, which is presumably why Andrew Weissman, a former prosecutor, is suggesting, former FBI general counsel and federal prosecutor, is suggesting that Donald Trump could get jail time if he's convicted criminally for falsifying business records in the Stormy Daniels hush money case. That trial is slated to begin April 15th in Manhattan. Presumably, it's going to take a few weeks for it to go forward, and then presumably he will be convicted because this is New York. And then presumably a judge might try to sentence him to jail time. So you could pretty easily see a situation in which Donald Trump is actually running for the presidency from a jail cell. Now, is that going to hurt Donald Trump in the polling data? Not if this is I have a feeling that if it looks like a politically motivated case to jail your political opponent, that might actually backfire on Democrats pretty badly. And ironically, truly ironically, separating Donald Trump from Truth Social and putting him behind bars might weirdly remove him from the stage. I mean, it's an unprecedented situation. If they can't put him in jail, what the media would love to do, obviously, is generate a bunch of false headlines. So, you remember, just a couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump suggested that if Joe Biden's economic plans prevailed, then America would experience an economic bloodbath. And the entire media went insane. They suggested that Donald Trump was threatening an actual physical bloodbath if Joe Biden won. That insurrectionary violence would break out on every street corner. There would be murder in the streets. The blood will run thick tonight. That kind of stuff. And it turns out that's not what Trump was saying. Well, now they're trying it again. So yesterday, Donald Trump gave a campaign speech. And during this campaign speech, he again used the word bloodbath, which apparently you're only allowed to use if you're a Democrat. So he was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and he suggested that Joe Biden is creating a bloodbath at the border.
I stand before you today to declare that Joe Biden's border bloodbath. It's a border bloodbath, and it's destroying our country. It's a very bad thing happening. The Democrats say, please don't call them animals. They're humans. I said, no, they're not humans. They're not humans. They're animals. Not one more innocent life should be lost to Biden migrant crime. The first step to restoring safety in America is to fire crooked Joe Biden, get him out November 5th.
Okay, so, border bloodbath. Okay, now, again, does he mean that he is going to unleash a bloodbath? Of course not. What he's saying is that there are murders that occur because the border is open. That 100,000 Americans are dying of fentanyl overdose every year in the United States because the border is open. That's what he means. Bloodbath is evocative language to be sure, but he's not calling for, doesn't matter. The Democrats and the media, but I repeat myself, are going to jump on this to suggest once again that Donald Trump is fomenting violence. If this is the best they got, they ain't got nothing. Here's Karine Jean-Pierre trying it yesterday.
What's the White House reaction to the use of that term bloodbath?
I'm going to be really mindful here because it is President, obviously the former president is also a candidate here, so want to follow the law with the Hatch Act. But we have to denounce. Our response is we have to denounce any violent rhetoric that we hear, certainly from our leaders, right, that tears our country apart. It could tear our country apart and puts our fellow Americans in harm's way, in danger. So we have to denounce that.
Okay, so that's going to put people in harm. Which people are going to be put in harm's way? Evidence, please. Like a little bit of evidence? No evidence. You got nothing? Yeah, there's a giant shock from the media and from the Biden administration. Meanwhile, speaking of the Biden administration legally targeting people, the Biden administration has been going after pro-lifers. 4 pro-lifers that were involved in a protest outside of a Nashville abortion clinic were found guilty in federal court, and they now face massive jail time for the crime of protesting outside an abortion clinic. Because obviously praying outside an abortion clinic is very, very different than, burning down entire cities during riots. And yet it's the Biden administration that supposedly is standing against bloodbaths and in favor of the rule of law. Yeah, I have a lot of questions. Going online without ExpressVPN, it's like using your smartphone without that protective case. Most of the time, probably fine. Then one day your kid takes it and drops it on the solid concrete and smashes it. Not that this has happened to me. Well, every time you connect to an unencrypted network in cafes, hotels, or airports, your online data is not secured. Any hacker on the same network can gain access to and steal your personal data. It doesn't take a lot of technical knowledge to hack somebody. All you need is some cheap hardware. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal information on the dark web. I love ExpressVPN because they create a secure encrypted tunnel between my device and the internet so hackers can't steal my sensitive data. I really love how ExpressVPN is easy to use. All you need to do is fire up that app, click one button, now you're protected. Plus, it works on all devices, phones, laptops, tablets, and more, so you can stay secure on the go. Secure your online data today. Visit expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show. That's EXPRESSVPN.com/Ben Shapiro Show. You can get an extra 3 months for free. That's expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show. Again, expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show to get started. Joe Biden is losing right now in 6 out of the 7 swing states, according to a brand new Wall Street Journal poll. Donald Trump is leading in Arizona by 5, in Georgia by 1, in Michigan by 3, in North Carolina by 6, in Nevada by 4, in Pennsylvania by 3, and they're tied in Wisconsin. That's the only state in which they are tied. Now, honestly, I think that poll is out of whack in Georgia. I think Trump is up way bigger than 1 point in Georgia. If he's up by 3 in Michigan, he's up by 6 in Michigan. And if he's up by 3 in Pennsylvania, he's probably up by 5 in Pennsylvania. These are terrible, terrible polls for Joe Biden. Both campaigns, as the Wall Street Journal points out, will spend hundreds of millions of dollars on advertising and turnout efforts in these 7 states. They account for 93 electoral votes out of the 270 needed to win. And again, this is a broad map for Donald Trump. Back in 2020, it was a very narrow map for Trump. He had to replicate his successes of 2016. Nevada has now been added to the map for Donald Trump. What is the state that has been added to the map for the Democrats? In 2016, Donald Trump won Arizona and Georgia, and they weren't on the map for Democrats. In 2020, the map broadened, and suddenly Joe Biden won Arizona and Georgia. Well, now those states appear to be increasingly out of reach for Joe Biden. And the map is broadening in the other direction, which is why Nevada is now in play. And in fact, the state of Nebraska may change the way that it selects its electoral votes. Nebraska is a weird state. They actually allocate their electoral votes by congressional district, which means that even though Nebraska is a very, very red state, it has 2 congressional districts, and one of them is Democrat. So there's now a move in the state legislature to reallocate the electoral votes the way every other state does, where winner takes all. That makes a difference because right now, there's a fairly decent shot that Donald Trump gets to 269, but not 270. But he gets to 270 if that one vote shifts in Nebraska. In other words, the map right now for Donald Trump is quite broad. And it seems to be getting broader specifically because Joe Biden is terrible at his job. And he is very terrible at actually taking a clear stance on issues and thereby winning over, for example, independents. Nowhere has this been clearer than in the Middle East. His left-wing base is excoriating him for not siding with Hamas. On MSNBC, voters were sounding off on Joe Biden because he was, quote unquote, alienating the base by continuing to allow Israel to take on Hamas.
Another young voter involved in the Uninstructed movement is 22-year-old Dahlia Saba.
This is a campaign that's being run by students and by young people who really care about this.
Saba has family in Gaza and says organizing protest efforts in Wisconsin allows her to feel empowered.
Joe Biden has already won the Democratic nomination, so the Uninstructed campaign is really a way of sending a message. It is not about him actually becoming president or not. It is a way for us to quantify, this is how many people care about this issue. We are Democrats. We're voting in the Democratic primary. These are your constituents, and your policy is alienating them.
Michael Moore is doing the same routine. He was on MSNBC suggesting that Joe Biden has to step in and stop what he calls ethnic cleansing of Gaza, which is not happening. There is no ethnic cleansing in Gaza. And the population of Gaza has increased massively since 1948. This is a ridiculous statement by Michael Moore, but of course he's been disconnected from reality for quite a while.
And Joe Biden, he's really the only one in the whole entire world that has the power to stop this, say within the next hour. Literally, by just turning off the faucet, pulling the plug. No more bombs, no more guns, no more bullets, no more nothing until you, Mr. Netanyahu, stop the slaughter. But they're not going to listen. They're just going to cash the checks, baby. So, yes, I said baby, not BB. BB is cashing the checks. The baby was to you, the man with the aviator sunglasses. You know who you are and what you have to do. You must have thought it.
Creepy weirdo Michael Moore suggesting that Hamas remain in place and also that the hostages remain in the tunnels. It's just a pathetic kind of stuff. Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.